Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Lady Freethinker's Activists in Action interview series. I'm Nina Jackel, founder of Lady Freethinker. We're a nonprofit media organization dedicated to exposing and stopping suffering of animals, humans, and the planet. Today, we are excited to speak with Linda Park. She's an animal rights activist. She's been one for over 20 years, and she's the co-founder of Voices for Lions, a nonprofit organization focused on advocacy and change for lions. Linda, before we get started, would you like to share a bit more on your background?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I've been really, as a child, I think, more connected with animals than people. Animals don't have an agenda, and I grew up in the bush, and there was wild animals, there was, household pets and so on. And I've always had this thing that animals should get a better deal than they do, whether they're pets, people dumping their pets or the wildlife or whatever it is. So it's something from a very small child, that was always an issue for me, that there needed to be more kindness and more compassion towards anything with four legs or feathers or whatever. And as I, grew up, I have no formal training in anything like that. It's not like I have an ecology degree or a zoology degree or anything. I started working a lot with animals in shelters, just actually going and giving of myself for them. So grooming, playing with them, sitting with them, whatever it was. And I got people that I worked with to come and join in, because I felt that, those animals had so little, and that was important. And then it kind of went on to horses. And then I was doing surrogacy work with a kinesiologist on mainly horses. Um, and it sort of grew. I got very involved once I moved to Joburg with the whole rhino poaching thing. But the lions, literally since probably about 1995, have been a big thing for me. And I think because I'm a Leo, it's probably makes lions even more important. And once the whole canned hunting thing broke at the end of the 90s, I thought, dear God, I mean, this can't be right. Why are we allowing it in this country? And having said that, the situation that was then compared to where we are now, we've slid down such a slippery slope. We are really in a horrendous mess. So I kind of picked up the pace of the lions, and I was doing a lot of work on my own in the background, going and visiting places and getting information. And then in 2014, I headed up the first Global March for Lions, which was around the world. I think it ended up in something like 96 cities around the world. And I headed up the one in Joburg, which was massive. We had over 3,000 people that came to that. It was absolutely huge. And as a result of that, I was asked to become a director of campaign against can hunting. Um, and so it kind of, and I'm not with them anymore now. It's Voice for Lions, and I can explain about that. But it's been a progression from a very small child of just understanding that we need to do better, and that's really my qualification, if you want to call it that. But there's no degree or anything.
Mhm. Well, that's fantastic. And my husband's also a Leo, by the way. So
Oh, well,
we both
I
love lions.
understand that.
So for those who aren't familiar with your organization, Voices for Lions, can you just talk about what the area of focus is, what you guys do?
So, Voice for Lions, we founded at the end of 2020 now, 2018. Um, there's two of us. There's Sarah Dyer, who's in the UK. So Sarah was a campaign against can hunting representative in the UK, and and then I was the director. So we both resigned, and we decided that, oh, there she goes,
Yeah,
that
Kira.
we would, we think the same way. We have the same values. same things we want to achieve. So we decided we would form Voice for Lions. We set it up as an NPO, but we don't fundraise. So everything we do out of our own pockets. But we wanted to do the NPO because it kind of gave us more legitimacy. And if at some stage ever down the line we need to raise funds for a genuine something or other, the NPO is set up, so everything's there. So we're also part of a coalition of NGOs in South Africa. So it's really bringing to government's attention all the things that are wrong, be it cub petting, the canned hunting, the breeding, the lion bone trade, all of that. So we do a lot of submissions. We collaborate with other NGOs. I've been doing a lot of research work for a film that's coming out and a book that's coming out. So it's wherever we can work to make a difference for those lions and bring this whole revolting industry to an end. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you've done some undercover work and advocacy for change for lions. Can you share a bit more on why you feel that we need to protect lions and what type of undercover work and advocacy you've done for them?
So if you take lions in general, so lions in the wild, because you can't really divorce the captive bred lions from the wild lions. So it was about 1940s somewhere, there was about 450,000 lions in the wild. Currently, there's about 20,000, probably less. Of those 20,000 in South Africa, there's probably only about 2,600 lions in the wild. In captivity, we are sitting, nobody knows the number because government doesn't know, nobody knows. I mean, I find out different things every day, but it's anywhere between 8 and 14,000 lions in captivity. But there's 2,700 lions in the wild. And then the story is, oh, but those lions in captivity, because they get shot and they get used for their bones and so on, they save those lions in the wild. But that is just a story because the poaching that is happening on wild lions, where they're being baited and lured because the fencing around the parks and that is shocking, is horrendous. In certain areas, the poaching for the paws and so on, we're having it here in South Africa in mostly the captive bred lions, but outside of the border, it's all the wild lions. So the market in the East actually prefers wild animals, not captive bred animals. So it's really important. If you look from 1940s to now, where you've gone from 450,000 to 20,000 or less, hell, we've got to put the brakes on and we've got to do something.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, those numbers are really shocking, and yeah, that's a huge problem. Um, Beyond Voices for Lions, I know that you've been an active leader in the animal rights field. Would you like to share some of your most memorable or moving experiences?
So really, a lot of them have obviously been with lions. Uh, there's been a lot with cats and horses. I've had some amazing experiences with horses. I don't ride horses. I'm, funnily enough, terrified of getting on a horse, and I just don't think it's the right thing to do anyway. But I've had really amazing, particularly with the surrogacy work that I was doing with the kinesiology, amazing experiences with them, where you see just really by opening your heart and just it's love. That's all they need. They need that love. And you open the heart, connect heart to heart with them. And you see, I'm thinking of one horse down in Durban that was, he'd been pumped with steroids. He was a racehorse. He was pumped full of steroids. Still couldn't perform. And so they dumped him at stables, but nobody could get near him. He was vicious, vicious, vicious. If you went near his stable door, he would actually lunge and try and bite you. So it was a case of, we're going to put this horse down because we can do nothing with it. And I went with the lady that I was doing the kinesiology work with, and we had a session outside the stable, far enough away from the door that he couldn't lunge. And just being in that space with him of opening up, and sending him healing and apologizing for what he'd been through, he fell asleep. It was incredible. I can still see him. This head just got droopier and droopier. And eventually we were able to go into the stable and actually work with him. And he ended up going to a farm where he just ran free, and he was just a horse. And whether he's still alive today or not, I don't know. But for me, that just shows you the power of respect, the power of opening up to that energy. I mean, we're all energy field, we're all sentient beings. Connect with that, and it's amazing to see the difference that you can make. And probably the most profound experience I've ever had with a lion was a lion called Gillespie, who is probably one of the reasons why I fight against this whole captive bred industry. He was in a captive bred facility, and he was the most amazing lion, probably one of the biggest lions I've seen. Very, very tall. He was a monster. But with that power that he had, there was a gentleness, there was a sweetness that people actually resonated with. People who saw him said, but what a sweet lion, not understanding what they were resonating with. And I distinctly remember, and it's many years ago, I'd had a week from hell at work, and it was a Sunday, and I thought, Sunday morning I'm going to go and see him, and I just need to sit with him, and I'm going to go really early before anyone else gets there. So off I went, and at that stage I had a tiny little Renault Clio, if you know what those are. It's a little tiny car. And off I went in my little car, and I went into the camp where he was, and I parked on the road, and he was lying far, far away up against the fence, fast asleep. He was flat on the ground, and he was fast asleep. And I just sat in my car and kind of opened my heart to him, and I was saying, just in my mind, I actually just want you to look at me. That's all I want, is for you to look at me. And I sat probably 5-10 minutes like that, and the head came up, and he looked at me, and I thought, oh wow, okay, I'm fine now. But he walked, he got up and he walked all the way to my car, and he sat down next to my car. Now, when he sat, his head was roof height of this little car that I had then, and he rested his nose on my window. So I put my nose on the window. So literally all we had was the glass between us. And he sat like that for a few minutes, and then he got up and he walked so slowly and so gently around my car, licking it all the way around. And then he came back and he sat down and he put his nose on the window again. So I put my nose on the window. He did that 3 times. And then he stood up and he sort of nodded, and it was like, you're okay now, I'm going back to sleep. And he walked all the way back to where he'd been sleeping, and he lay down and he went back to sleep. And of course I sat in my car and I was finished. I cried and I cried and I cried. I mean, I couldn't stop. But you know what? It was like a healing, like I can't describe. It was the most amazing thing. And I thought, there was that lion who just gave of himself, and in such a gentle, loving way. And he eventually was sold for a canned hunt. So he lost his life. And I have this huge photograph of him up in my bedroom. And for me, it's like, to my dying day, for you, I will push to get this industry shut down. And I think that's my driver, definitely.
Wow. I mean, amazing experience and ending in that tragedy. I mean, that's just incredible. That's, yeah, really touching, really touching. So thank you for sharing that. And for my last question, I'd love to know what's in store for you moving forward and what's the best way for people to follow your work and your organization.
So to follow us, you can find us on Facebook. It's Voice Figure 4 Lions. It's all one word. It's at Voice Figure 4 Lions. Or you can find us on the Lion Coalition website. So it's lioncoalition.org. And you'll get a lot of information both ways there. Currently, as I say, we really busy with this film that's coming out middle of the year, and also a book that's coming out mid-year. We've done submissions to DEFRA in the UK on the whole trophy hunting issue. There's submissions going on here in this country about the lion bone trade, because I'm sure you know all about that and how horrendous that is. And I mean, the conditions that those lions live in is unbelievable. So that's an ongoing thing. It's like all the time, you've got to keep up and follow, and push, and just put your foot in wherever you can. And in between times, Sarah and I both work, so it's fitting things in where we can. But until this industry comes to an end, we have to keep finding a niche and doing whatever we can do. And people, Joe Public will say, well, what can we do? We're only one person. And I say, but there's so much you can do. Go onto our Facebook page, start sharing stuff. Talk to your local MPs or your, whoever it happens to be, the embassies, consulates. There are all sorts of things that people can do. And it's a case of really, for me, education, because people don't know, and they go and they volunteer or they pet cubs, and they don't know any better. So it's really up to us who know better to do the education thing. So that's a whole part of it, is giving talks. I've got a talk at the end of this month, which is actually at a rhino function, but I'll be talking really about wildlife and our connection to wildlife. I think I told you earlier that I'd written a book as well called The Book of Samson, which is actually conscious living according to the animals. If anybody wants a copy of that, they can get it from Sarah. So you can just go onto Voice of a Lion's Facebook page and ask about it. She's doing all the overseas orders for me. So it's literally, stuff is coming every day. Okay, we need to do that. We need to focus on that. And we just keep up the pressure. And I just please that justice eventually prevails for these poor animals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's such important work that you're doing. So Linda,
Thank you.
thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. We really love what you're doing to help the lions and look forward to continuing to follow your journey and see your work progress and see progress happen for these lions because they really need your help. So thank you for everything that you do. And it was great having you. For everyone watching, thank you for checking out this episode of Lady Freethinker's Activist in Action series. Be sure to check out the other videos in our series and also stay tuned for future episodes. And for more information on our organization, please visit ladyfreethinker.org, or you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Lady Freethinker. Thanks for watching.